The others, quote, "Are y'all available for a mission?" That night, without a warrant, the officers burst into the home, handcuffed, beat, tasered the two men, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Also sexually abused them with a sex toy with shouting racial slurs. One of the officers put a gun in Jenkins' mouth for a mock execution and pulled the trigger. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, exited through his neck. This is U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca last week announcing federal charges against the former officers for the attack.
But not only did they brazenly commit these acts, but after inflicting serious bodily injury by firing a shot through one of the victim's mouths, they left him lying in a pool of blood. Gathered on the porch of the house to discuss how to cover it up. What indifference. What disregard for life.
After the attack, Michael Corey Jenkins was actually charged with a felony based on methamphetamine the officers said they found in the raid. But records show that was a lie, and the charge was dropped. In fact, the deputies planted drugs to devise an excuse for the raid and also stole surveillance video from the house. Their body cameras were off. Court documents said the officers used the name Goon Squad, quote, because of their willingness to use excessive force and not to report it. The Associated Press found the deputies were linked to at least 4 violent attacks on black men since 2019. 2 of the men died. For more, we're joined by Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, as well as Malik Shabazz, a civil rights attorney with Black Lawyers for Justice who's representing them. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Malik, let's begin with you. Can you talk about how this case was exposed, how we saw these officers charged, and what you understand about their background, this not being the first vicious attack?
Okay, thank you for having us on. I want to say before we get started that Michael and Eddie will only be speaking, that they cannot speak about the specific details of what happened in that house that night, but they can talk about their reactions to the guilty verdicts and to their pain and suffering. And Michael is suffering because half of his face is numb. But because we have sentencing coming up, so we're under certain sensitive legal guidelines. But we're happy to be on with such a progressive audience. This case was brought to light through the determination of Black Lawyers for Justice, of myself as the attorney for Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, and Mississippi Counsel Trent Walker. From early January, we have advocated strongly and vigorously in every way, and we have worked with community activists in Mississippi and throughout the country in order to bring the truth that is coming to light today, that these defendants, Hunter Elwood, Christian Dedman, Brett McAlpin, Middleton, Osdike, and Joshua Hartfield, that they're called the Rankin County Goon Squad. They're known in the community as the Rankin County Death Squad. This has been occurring for a long time under the leadership of Sheriff Brian Bailey, who should be the subject of criminal investigation also. And they have been getting away with this so long that they felt emboldened to act in such a radical and callous way on that night of January 24th, 2023. But it's through persistence. It's through intense legal advocacy, with us advocating to the U.S. Justice Department, collecting evidence and applying legal pressure and all kinds of pressure to bring about what is now historic. Last Thursday, these 6 defendants pled guilty to 14 federal criminal charges They'll plead guilty to more state charges Monday. This is the first time, democracy now, this is the first time that a white Mississippi police officer has ever been held criminally responsible for harming a black person. And we know that plenty of police brutality has occurred not only in Rankin County under Brian Bailey, but throughout the state of Mississippi. This is a history-making moment. I'm just so sorry it had to come on the backs of the pain and the suffering, the torture and the shooting and the abuse and waterboarding of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, our clients.
I can't bear to go to Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker meeting you in this way for what you went through that horrific January night. But I'm wondering if each of you could respond to the guilty plea of these officers and what it means to you that some of them may be facing life in prison. Michael Jenkins, let's begin with you.
I feel great that we're finally getting justice. After months, at first they didn't even believe us. For a while I didn't think they were gonna even get a slap on the wrist or anything, but I feel great about it.
And I know it's difficult for you to talk with the gun in your mouth. The police shot you through your mouth, lacerating your tongue. It went through to your neck, shredding that area of your neck. I am only glad that you can be with us today. Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now. As we speak.
And Eddie Parker, if you can talk about your response to this plea deal.
It's a long time coming. It's something I say there's also history too, coming from a long way of going through this situation with the same police officers, and pretty much you steer clear, to stay out the way so you wouldn't end up in this situation. But ending up in this situation wasn't part of me, staying clear. So I'm astounded. I'm real happy that it's finally come to a point where they're getting getting a feeling of what they dish out to people, day in, day out.
And I really misspoke because it's not a deal. They have pled guilty. The idea that they call themselves, Eddie Parker, that they call themselves the Goon Squad. Your thoughts?
That's the Goon Squad. That seems to be a crime organization that they were paid to go out and to stop, but they became that themselves. I believe policing and the public go hand in hand. I mean, they're people just like us. They want to be held accountable for everything they do. They want to get this certain I guess you say the end of the stick treatment as being the golden ones, but they're not. They're people just like us. I mean, they go out and they do the opposite of what they're getting paid to do. I think it's very horrendous how they can call themselves a Goon Squad and still put on a badge and say they're protecting people.
Malik Shabazz, your lawsuit also mentions other times Rankin County Sheriff deputies used excessive force. I want to ask you about Damian Cameron, who died in 2021 after being taken into custody by the same Rankin County Sheriff's deputies who later attacked Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. This is a clip from a WAPT news report featuring Jenkins' mother, Monica Lee.
A news release from the Rankin County Sheriff's Office says deputies got a call about a burglary and vandalism. When they arrived, Damian was identified as the suspect. The release says as a deputy approached him, he began to fight and resist arrest. They were able to eventually get him into custody and into a patrol car.
And I'm thinking they're taking my son to jail. So I go outside to tell my son goodbye and I love him and I'll be up there tomorrow. At that point, when I got to the side of the truck, my son was laid on the ground, unresponsive.
Monica Lee has said she believes if the sheriff had taken action against the deputies involved in her son's death, maybe they would not have gone on to attack Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker. The lawsuit also holds Sheriff Bailey responsible for failing to properly train the deputies involved in these incidents. This is Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week about the charges his former deputies pled guilty to.
Based on the facts and their guilty pleas, all of the former deputies lied to me that night of this incident in January. We have cooperated fully with all outside investigating agencies to uncover the truth and bring justice to the victims. We've also sought assistance from outside agencies and consultants to help us in repairing our trust with the community.
So that was Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey speaking last week. Malik Shabazz, the civil rights attorney who's brought the lawsuit on behalf of Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, if you can respond to the sheriff and to this previous case.
Yes. First of all, I want to give honors to Miss Monica Lee, who was the mother of Damian Cameron, Attorney Trent Walker, and myself. We represent Miss Monica Lee for the death of Damian Cameron, which occurred at the hands of the Rankin County Sheriff's Department and its officers, including Hunter Elwood, the shooter who didn't just shoot Michael Jenkins in his mouth. He placed the gun inside Michael Jenkins' mouth and held it for an extended period of time, almost up to a minute, before he intentionally shot Michael Jenkins in his mouth, attempting to kill him. Yes, Ms. Lee is correct. If they would not have participated in a cover-up around Damian Cameron's death, Damian Cameron's death is analogous and very similar to George Floyd's death. It was Hunter Elwood and Luke Stickman who put the knees on Damian Cameron's back and on his neck, causing trauma to his neck and causing hemorrhages in both of Damian Cameron's eyes, meaning that the compression on his neck is what led to asphyxiation and his actual cause of death. But the autopsy, mysteriously, was ruled undetermined. With all of the evidence that I'm saying and all of the gruesome photos of the neck injuries and the hemorrhages of the eyes bulging out of his head, the autopsy finding was mysteriously undetermined. The autopsy itself is missing certain information, and therefore, myself and Black Lawyers for Justice, we have our own forensic pathologist who are coming forth shortly to show you that this was a homicide and that Rankin County and Brian Bailey refused to provide the state medical examiner with information to reach a proper conclusion because they were all protecting the officers from criminal prosecution. Therefore, the autopsy is suspicious. The autopsy and the efforts to have a genuine autopsy, it was covered up by Rankin County. And Brian Bailey has been a part of this. Ms. Lee is correct. If they hadn't been trying to cover up, if Bailey hadn't been trying to justify his officers, no, he didn't just not train them. He has participated in acts of excessive force with his department, according to the courts. When Hunter Elwood shot Pierre Woods in Rankin County on the ground, and he gunned him and he shot him 9 times with his rifle, and the man was no threat to him. Sheriff Bailey was on the scene, and a federal judge ruled that Bailey could not have qualified immunity because he ratified and watched it all go on in person. And so the truth is coming out about the death of Damian Cameron and how they had the knees on his neck like his mother has testified by affidavit to. and they had a knees on his neck that crushed the life out of Damian Cameron, and they did nothing about it. They've lied to us, but we're going to bring that case. That case is coming back to life. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan. They infiltrated the sheriff's department. Brian Bailey has known about this. Many of these criminals were on duty up until June 1st, only through the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and U.S. Department of Justice leader Kristen Clark and her Southern District in Mississippi, who've done a great job. Only through their efforts has Brian Bailey, sheriff, trying to come to some remorse. He has not even apologized to the victims. We demand that Brian Bailey step down now. He's a part of a pattern of practice and a culture and a custom of terrorism by his department. We have blacks, whites, rich, poor. They have been beaten by his officers. He's known this all along, and the struggle continues. In this case, for compensation for these two suffering victims, Jenkins and Parker, but for all of the victims of Rankin County terrorism. It's the #1 county for terrorism and white supremacist infiltration. Case in point, before I close, Christian Dedman. It's coming out, he has family members that have pled guilty in Mississippi to hate crimes. I mean, a lot more is going to come out about this. Rankin County is infested with white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan, and it's in the police departments.
And Malik Shabazz, can you place Rankin County for us in two ways, in history and also just geographically? It's right near Jackson, the capital.
Yes. Attorney Trent Walker says, who grew up in Rankin County, my partner, Attorney Trent Walker, states that this was customary in Rankin County. They beat first and they don't ask questions later. They beat you, they kill you, and you are ordered not to say anything about it. Hunter Elwood, the shooter, actually pled guilty in federal court to another crime he had committed, which contained a similar fact to what he did in the home of Jenkins and Parker. When these deputies busted in to begin this torture session, Hunter Elwood shot his gun off as an intimidation against Jenkins and Parker. Before he shot Michael later, he shot his gun off. Well, he pled guilty in federal court to doing the same thing to another person in Rankin County. He just shooting his gun off like that. So what we're saying, ma'am, is that all of these truths are going to come to light. Rankin County has done this for a long time. It's near Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, and I believe the county is sort of a reaction to Jackson. Jackson is in Hinds County. It's majority black, and there's hostility towards Jackson. And Rankin is like a white enclave that is next to Jackson, and it's set up like almost like a political, social antithesis or against Jackson. And so they're clear in Rankin, just 20 minutes away from Jackson, Mississippi, just like these deputies said. They didn't want any black men living in the area. The mere fact that there were black men in this area, that they were going to carry out this mission and let them know that they were not welcome and they were going to violate all laws and break in. It's because they have determined, I believe these deputies and others in that county have determined that Rankin County is for whites and Hinds County is for blacks. And they're going to enforce it under the color of law, through violence and torture. Not to mention, especially on this program, we cannot forget waterboarding. Waterboarding was where the United States military was condemned for using these techniques at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, in the Iraq War. The military denounced this. But in 2023, incredibly, in Rankin County, these deputies, Elwood, McAlpin, Dedman, Updike, Middleton, Hartsfield, they actually waterboarded the two men you see now. They had them on their backs. They had them handcuffs. They had them intimidated, and they were pouring milk, liquids, and grease all over their faces in this insane interrogation and intimidation act. Then after they did all this, can you imagine law enforcement with dildos and sexual devices in their possession, attempting and putting it in the mouths? I hate to say this, that happened to the brothers, but we got to know their pain and suffering. To take a dildo and to shove it in the mouths of handcuffed and bound men, and then waterboard them like that on the ground, and then hurl eggs at them, and then make them strip naked in the shower to try to clean this mess up, strip these men naked in front of these criminals. You know, it just never fails to ignite my passion, and therefore tactically and strategically, we are after Rankin County and we won't let up.
I want to end with the voices of Michael, Corey Jenkins, and Eddie Terrell Parker. How you have lived through the aftermath of this, the trauma that you have experienced, and what you want to come out of this. I mean, it looks like you are exposing an entire sheriff's department in Mississippi. Let's begin with Eddie Parker.
We want justice. We want justice for everyone that has gone through this with Rankin County or gone through this because of Rankin County. We want justice for the ones that were afraid to speak up. You know, justice for the ones that can't speak up. We want you know, something new and better and, you know, and clean to come out of this.
And Michael Jenkins.
Basically the same thing, to make sure that nobody never go through what we went through again. You know, animals don't get treated like this. You know, I ain't never seen no animal get treated like this. Just to make sure.
I just want to thank you, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, for your bravery.
Yeah, these Edomite devils, they've got a small man's problem. Why would these so-called police officers, overseers that work for the Oppenheimers, you know, members of the Ku Klux Klan, have badges with guns? This has been going on for hundreds of years, okay, since the Emancipation Proclamation, which all it was transfer from private ownership of slaves to public ownership of slaves. That's all. It was just a trade. It wasn't, there was no freedom put forth, because under maritime law and the Constitution of the United States, Negroes are still looked at right into this day, 2023 now, as property. Go read it yourself, goddammit. It's there. Okay? Don't forget what the young lady did at the football game with the national anthem, how she changed it around. Okay? The name of this video is called "And He Kept His Wrath Forever." I mean, it is a small little man's complex, right? Where'd you get the dildos from? Where'd you get the plastic toys from? Oh, from underneath your bed at home with your wife. And then you want to keep which is good, keep separation. You know, we don't need to be bothered with your women, but your women desire us, because the Most High God, Yahweh, blessed us with the imaginary dildo in actual practical application per so-called Negro, black man, per individual, right? So since it's per individual that have these not actual dildos, but dildo-sized private parts that your women desire, that's the reason why you want to keep them out of the county. you goddamn people have... Okay, the Most High God said that He would make you small among the heathen. He made you small among the heathen. right? And he kept his wrath forever, right? Okay, let me see if I can boom, go over here. Okay, let's see. And he kept, right? Boom. Now, where is it at? Oh, it went too fast. Ezekiel, or is it Malachi? Okay. Well, I know where it's at. Ain't no big deal. Amos 1. Oh. Well, anyways. Amos 1. Okay.
You know you have the
Anyway,
key fob, right?
Shalom.
You have the key fob? It hasn't unlocked?
Right.